Good evening. This is the December meeting of the Hudson Public Works Committee. We are meeting on December 12th, 2022. And I am Joy Knudsen. I represent District 3 in the City of Hudson. I'm going to call the roll this evening. Mike Kennedy.
Here.
Sarah Brook.
Here.
Present. Excellent. We're also here tonight. We have Deb Andrews, Executive Assistant of Public Works. Mike Mraz is the Public Works Director. And Dean Chamberlain, who is our City Engineer for a few more weeks. So we'll have a chance to wish you well later, Dean, and you'll be having the stage for quite a bit of the evening tonight. So thank you all for being present this evening. There's no one present here today for public comment, so we'll move into approval of minutes. Does anyone have any comments or corrections on the minutes from last meeting?
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and second to approve the minutes. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? They are approved. Okay, here's comments. See, I was out of order. Comments and suggestions. Let's go into new business. We are going to be talking about our expenditures for the coming 2-year cycle. The City of Hudson Common Council just recently approved a capital improvement plan for budgeting. We did plan out a 5-year prediction of what we would do, but we're definitely committing to the next 2 years of what projects will actually be done, and we're doing our best to predict the cost of those projects and be able to move forward with those. I just wanted to thank the committee members for helping sort of speed up the process here by the council actually took some action a little bit earlier. This month, usually they would wait until we discussed it first, but we wanted to move things along to get in line and get our bids get our bids out so that we could get the best possible engagement from contractors, and I believe that's going forward yet this week. So we will be receiving bids on some of those projects already in January. So our first item of new business is discussion and possible action regarding infrastructure maintenance and reconstruction for the portion of the 2023 through 2027 capital improvement program. And we do have an issue sheet with a number of pages there. I'm going to allow Dean Chamberlain to take the floor.
Thank you. So before you tonight, we have the proposed 2023 through 2027 capital improvement program with the section that involves streets and infrastructure. So attached to your issue sheet tonight, you have the actual full capital improvement program with kind of those lines highlighted that we're discussing tonight, essentially. So just for what it's worth, the capital improvement program for 2023 and 2024 approved $2 million each year for streets and infrastructure projects, and then an additional $50,000 each year for alleys, trails, and sidewalks.
So let's clarify that, yes. Dean, because earlier this fall, I think we talked as a committee here that annual expenditure, which Mike Mraz has certainly played a big role in establishing, this concept that we need to do regular maintenance on some of those areas of our community, the trails, the sidewalks, and we had a plan moving forward. Initially, that was going to be wrapped into the $2 million or part of $2 million, and now we have $2 million plus that dollar amount. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, because that's how Aaron presented it, and the full council approved that.
Yep.
So that actually gives us 2.15.
Yes.
To spend.
For the next 2 years.
Okay, for our planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, exactly. And then, as we look forward more in 25 and 26, the streets and infrastructure money gets bumped up to $2.5 million, or if you wrap in the sidewalks and trails and whatnot into that, it's $2.65 million. And then in 2027, it'd be up to $3 million. So you'll see that in the attachments. So really, we're trying to fill in that gap of that, $2 million number. What does that break out into as far as projects we're looking at in the future, so that we're able to do, design for these projects ASAP, especially for next year's work that we for projects we haven't already done, And then, yeah, looking forward to 2024 and that kind of stuff as well. Excuse me. You'll see attached also to the issue sheet and also printed out in somewhat larger font size for you tonight is a breakdown of the proposed infrastructure capital improvement program. And so I'll be going through that in just a second, especially for the next few years here. Kind of as you go further out, the discussion tonight is a little less critical because we're really talking mostly about next year and then the year after, but it's also helpful to know kind of future looking what things we're looking at on the docket in the future and can plan accordingly. And also just know that the CIP will get looked at each year. So, this time next year, there'll also be a discussion about, okay, looking back on 2023, okay, did we complete these projects? If not, why? Usually, that's because the bid was too high or something like that, like we experienced with 3rd Street this year. Or, actually, hey, we estimated a cost that ended up being, the estimate was high, so we had a savings there that, so say we have $50,000 extra that we didn't expect, we can wrap that into 2024, to do maybe another block of alleys or another trail section or depending on what the amount is, that's kind of, kind of revisit this on a year-to-year basis to see where we're at with things. So I want to go through this. So before you tonight, you've got the costs and projects, and you also have it in map form as well. So for those like me who like seeing things on a map, you got that in front of you as well. So for 2023 projects, the ones that we are looking at doing are the street maintenance project, which at the last council meeting you all approved. So thank you for that. So that obviously there's streets all over town that we're looking to crack fill, chip seal, essentially preserve pavement that's in decent condition and make sure it doesn't degrade into something that's going to cost more to maintain later. The second major project would be the 3rd Street Laurel Avenue project that we also discussed at council last week as well, and that was approved. So again, just for the sake of everybody listening, that would entail reconstructing the area around the bluff up on top of the hill as you curve around from 3rd to Laurel, where the retaining wall underneath is currently kind of deteriorating, so we need to get that fixed. And then also replacing the pavement down to Walnut Street as well, so make it all in good condition for a while here. The third project would be some signal improvements on Carmichael Road that we received a grant to do. That will be happening in 2023. We're working through design right now on that project. The fourth one listed is called Safe Streets for All Action Plan. And this, members may recall kind of some discussion about doing like a traffic safety toolbox kind of idea. This Safe Streets for All Action Plan kind of is that more or less. So what this would do, so this is piggybacking on the county. The county actually applied for a federal grant called the Safe Streets for All grant program. If they're successful, then what would happen is we get to piggyback off of their grant application essentially. So that's $20,000 in here is for a match essentially for a grant to kind of work with them on getting this put together so that we are able to use it. And what that plan does is identify safety issues in town for not only vehicles but also pedestrians, bicyclists, that kind of thing. And can do essentially a lot of the same things that we were looking to do with the traffic safety toolbox. Look for, what are some improvements that we can do, whether it's really low cost stuff, really easy to implement, or it's more heavy duty, so to speak. It's, actual infrastructure being changed, curb lines, pavement, that kind of thing. So that if the county's successful getting that grant, we don't know that yet, but if they are, then we can work with them on getting that done for our community as well.
And would that be a multi-year project? I mean, is that on next year too?
Nope, it's just for
Just
the
a
1 year.
one-time
Yep.
thing? Okay.
Yep.
For, to
So-
pay for their assessment
Yep.
and advice.
Yep,
on
and
what
so
we might do.
what that would do is put together this action plan that also allows us for being able to tap into another, it's called a Safe Streets for All implementation program grant. And so that would allow us to, if we have identified some safety issues for, you know, any type of traffic, there's essentially money for construction implementation. So if there's a intersection or there's a segment of street in town that has a lot of barriers for people to cross or having a lot of crashes or something like that, then we can apply for that money that not just anybody has the ability to apply for. They have to have this action plan done first before they're able to apply for that construction money. So that's the impetus for also going in with the county to do this Safe Streets for All action plan, so we can tap into that funding if possible.
If we have more questions on that, should we save it until you've gone through all of
Yeah.
this?
Yep,
Okay.
that sounds good.
Okay.
The next thing listed is Laurel Avenue from Blakeman to 11th Street. That would be a mill, underseal, and overlay project. That essentially is just for prolonging the pavement there until we can hopefully reconstruct that at some point in the future. The next thing is City Hall parking lot full depth reclamation. Essentially, it'd be grinding up the pavement in the City Hall parking lot and repaving it. The pavement is falling apart out there and needs to be replaced. And then the last project for 2023 is trail maintenance. And so we're starting to look at which trail sections to do, but we kind of think that maybe Lakefront Park behind the band shell might be a good first section to do, because it's not in great shape and it's heavily used.
Right.
So you'll notice in 2023 you don't see the sidewalk and alley funding in there. And the reason for that is Mike and I have been talking, and we've kind of decided that, well, and obviously you guys can tell us as a committee if you agree with this or not, but we feel that instead of spending $50,000 per thing per year, it would make more sense to spend $100,000 every other year, so that we can get an economy of scale kind of thing going on with the project, so that your per square foot of concrete is lower, your per ton of asphalt is lower, rather than these really small projects that you end up getting a high bid price on because they're just so small. And so we felt that that would be more cost effective to kind of combine those 2 years together to make one larger project, and that would be in the even years. So you'll see that in 2024 that it'll show up.
Could
And-
you,
And the cost to just engineer the projects instead of, you know,
That's true, yep.
yeah, spending, you know, $20,000 in 2023 and 20,000, you know, pool it together, maybe engineering will be less and you get more product for your.
More bang for your buck,
Yeah, more
yeah.
bang for your buck, yeah.
Sure.
could you give us a sense on like what 100,000 roughly gets, like how much,
Yep.
how many blocks or?
So for reference, the alley project that we did this year was approximately $80,000 and it got us 2 blocks of alleys.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and hoping also that
Prices,
the
yeah.
material prices are gonna come down, so,
So,
Our original estimate was hopefully to get 3 blocks for that $100,000. Obviously, the
Yeah.
prices were high last year, which, you know,
yeah. So,
Played
so
into
just
it.
thinking about it, if you only had $50,000 to spend, you couldn't get 2 blocks of alleys out of it, so you probably would just be doing 1 instead of 3. So that seems to be a better solution
Yeah.
in our minds anyway.
Yep.
But
that makes
anyway,
sense.
you can tell us if we're wrong about that.
Good advice, and I think we've already seen this year that we have to roll with what happens.
Yeah.
And what's happening in the city and prices and bids. Now, if, just
Yeah.
interject for a moment. As a committee, would you like to discuss that year in depth right now, or do you want Dean to do the overview for all of the years? What do you prefer? Should we have him keep going?
I'm okay with Dean's rolling.
Keep him going.
Okay,
All right, here we
we'll
go.
keep going. Thank you. All right, so in 2024, that's kind of the, next year, next critical year, I guess, so to speak. So In 2024, we have a reconstruction of Commercial Street and Wisconsin Street just south of the downtown area. And that has a lot to do with the potential for these redevelopment projects that are happening kind of around that area. If we're able to kind of tap into the developer funding, if they want to redevelop these sites, they're going to have to chip in money to do things like replace the sidewalks and replace some utilities anyway. And so we kind of felt that, there could be a win-win situation for us and them as well. So if they're going to have a project there, those streets are not in good shape. And so if we can, go ahead and just redo the entire thing while there's already construction happening there, the cost would come down for us. And then also, it just is a more cohesive product, so to speak, just being able to do it all at once. So that's the idea kind of behind that project in particular.
So Commercial Street, I should have said this for Laurel. Commercial Street has a PACER rating of 1 to 2, and Wisconsin Street has a PACER rating of 3 to 4, just for your information.
Okay.
Yep, so not in good shape. We have a street maintenance project identified for 2024, and essentially that includes Bellarose streets and St. Croix Meadows streets. For that project, we have some developer funding that was set aside for the Bellarose project in particular, so that's where that $30,000 line item comes from. That reduces our costs for that project. 2024, the third project on the list is Green Street from 11th Street to the west end. And obviously that's not in great shape, but we've had some requests for doing that project. I'm sure we'll talk more about that one too. We also, just to say with that project too, we are also submitting a grant for a program called STP Local for that project. There's supplemental funding available for that program that for some reason came available, so we're just going to try and see if we can get a few bucks to put towards that project as well. So
What was the name of the fund?
STP Local, Surface
Okay.
Transportation Program, is what
Okay, thank
STP
you.
stands for. And it's specifically for local streets, so not the arterial streets, the
Right, neighborhood.
neighborhood type streets, yeah.
And have you, appreciate the work you do in submitting those. Have you already processed that, or that's,
I've put it together, I haven't submitted it yet.
there's certainly
but-
deadline
yep,
ahead,
yep,
okay?
I had Mike actually just looking it over today, so
great.
we'll get that submitted before I leave.
Thank
but,
you.
Yeah,
That's
so
great.
that just for what it's worth, that grant application is due in March, and so we probably won't
Sure.
hear back until May or so until
Okay.
when we know.
Sure.
So
What's
you.
the maximum that we could receive from that?
$500,000.
Okay,
Yep. Could be less, they could award less than that,
Sure.
but that is the maximum that they've indicated that they're funding for that
Okay.
solicitation. And then the next projects are kind of what I alluded to, those $100,000 sidewalk projects and alley projects, a sidewalk project and alley project, I should say, and then another trail maintenance project as well. So that's what we're showing for 2024. Beyond 2024, obviously, is not as important right now, but is still somewhat important because, especially in 2025, there is a project that requires funding in 2023 for design. So I just wanted to go over that. So in 2025 will be the 11th Street project. That is a mill under seal and overlay and either a sidewalk or a trail extension from Wisconsin Street to Cooley Road. So we have received grant funding for that project. We were hoping that it would be constructed in 2024, but because of apparently WSDOT is booked for projects in 24, so they've pushed us to 25 for construction. So that's why that is where it is in there. The design, however, would be in 2023, so that's why it is shown there. That is an 80-20 match, so we don't have to expend all of our funds to do the design for that project, which is great. We also are showing the Hagan Street Bridge project in 2025 that is dependent on grant funding for construction, and we haven't received that yet. We have 2 grant applications out right now, but that was definitely contingent upon receiving funding unless the council decides otherwise to fund it themselves. So, but that's kind of what we're assuming right now, is that we're needing those grant funds to construct that project. And then we have a trail maintenance project shown in 25. Just very quickly in 26, we have resurfacing Carmichael Road south of I-94. We have resurfacing Laurel Avenue the rest of the way to 17th Street from 11th to 17th. And then again, those sidewalk, alley, and trail projects. And then in 2027, the big project would be Locust Street downtown. Full reconstruction of Locust Street from 1st to 3rd, including all the pipes underground and everything, so.
Explain why that one's on your list, Dean.
Why that one's on the list?
Yeah, explain why that's
well, because it's deteriorating very rapidly. If you go down to Locust Street, like the curb is almost non-existent in certain places. These sidewalks have some tripping hazards. The pavement is in poor shape. It's a busier street. It's in our downtown core area. It's supporting a lot of our businesses. We want to make sure that
Sanitary.
the sanitary sewer also needs to be upsized. Thank you, Mike. The water main is 4 inches in diameter, which is really small, and it's from the 1800s.
When
the storm sewer is also lacking in capacity there too.
When the utility did their recent sanitary report, that was one of the sections within the community that was flagged to get redone sooner rather than later, to upsize it because there is a potential for a pinch point at that location. So that's why that one's on the list, along with all the other poor pavement and curb and gutter conditions. But so just to let you know.
So yeah, that is.
So that's 2.3 million for about 3 blocks?
Yeah, and part of the reason that one is more expensive is first of all, it's
All the way down.
everything. It's a wider street because it's in the downtown area. The pavement's probably gonna be a little thicker because there's more traffic in the downtown area. There would be things probably more like decorative lighting, landscaping, that kind of stuff. Not that I'm promising anything right now, but you know, it probably will be a part of that project
Okay.
versus if you're thinking about a residential street doesn't have some of those things. You know, a residential street is also usually narrower and, you know, that kind of stuff. So just keep in mind that that is why the price tag on that is higher than you would expect.
Sure.
So before we begin discussion and open this up and answer any questions that you might have, Dean, can you just convey to the committee members and the public kind of a general rule of thumb of how much, let's just say 1 block of street cost to reconstruct, just so we kind of have an idea and get a framework, because I think it's a lot more expensive than what people realize. And I think it helps for discussion purposes.
Yeah, yep, no, that's a great point. So a full reconstruction, so that would be replacing the pavement, curb and gutter, sidewalks, and all the pipes underground on a more residential street, is about $400,000 a block. So for frame of reference, I believe that we're looking at some of the projects that we've been talking about, like 9th Street is one of them, you know, Fillmore Oak, you know, that's one of them. You know, 9th Street, for the sake of discussion, is, you know, what did we say, it was 8-9 blocks long, something like that.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5
But
blocks,
then
yep.
you have to add
Plus you
those-
got to wrap around,
So it's like 7 or 8 blocks long. So the cost of that project ends up being $2.5 to $3 million, just, you know, because it's
Right.
about $400,000 a block. So, and, you know, obviously the less you do, you know, if you're not reconstructing, but you're doing just a pavement replacement, it's obviously less than that. I don't have those numbers necessarily off the top of my head, but, you know, and also if you think about streets that are busier, you know, or more truck traffic or something like that, that $400,000 actually goes up because your pavement is thicker. You're thinking about maybe doing concrete pavement instead of asphalt pavement at that point in time, you know, stuff like that. So that $400,000 number can go up or down kind of depending
Yeah.
on the situation, but that's kind of the rule of thumb.
general rule.
Yep.
So and that's full reconstruction.
That's full, yep, including pipes. So part of that number would likely be paid by the water, sanitary sewer utility, but, say that's about 10% or so of that cost would be passed along to that utility.
And of these, the 5 years that you've sort of laid out for us, that's the only chunk, the only section of street that we would be doing a full reconstruction on, or do you count that when we go up Third and Laurel? Is that counted as? No?
Third and Laurel around the bluff doesn't actually have any utilities, so that's great.
Okay, don't have water, sanitary.
Don't have water,
okay.
Sanitary sewer there, no storm sewer either. The commercial Wisconsin reconstruction, that would include pipes underground as well.
Sure.
So that, for the sake of discussion with this, the commercial Wisconsin project is about 2.5 blocks long. So you got the first to second on both commercial and Wisconsin is an entire block, and then from Second to the Williams lot is about half a block. So you can kind of see that $400,000 number per block is about right based on what we're seeing in here. It's about 1.1 to $1.2 million for total cost for that project. So for what it's worth, you can kind of see how that comes to fruition with that.
Okay,
I've been doing a lot of talking. I want to hear from you guys.
Let's open for discussion. Questions or comments?
Okay, I'll start. Dean, we can't let you go off, easy
Right.
here. So, no, and I don't have any real specific project questions. And again, just kind of general discussion for those watching at home or as a reference. So we'll say a year ago or in the past, I always remember that number of 1.3 million. And now we're up at 2 million. With inflation, I know there's a tough question, that's why I'm asking it to you, but we're not getting that much more buying power. I know it's math, and I'm not very good at math, so, but I know that 2 is bigger than 1.3. With all this inflation, some of the asphalt costs and things like that, I think it's helpful for people to know that even though we're spending a lot more, the meeting last week, they heard we're spending a lot more on this, but we're actually just kind of updating it a little bit to play a little catch up with inflation. Is that?
That is certainly a big part of it, and I think I mentioned at this committee, you can kind of track it by like the asphalt price over time. So, we found that we were spending about $120 a ton on asphalt last year, which is astronomical compared to recent past. 2020, when we had a mill and overlay project, we were about $80 a ton.
Oh, that's a big increase.
That's 50% over 2 years. That's a lot. And in my experience in previous positions, say in like about the 2017, 2018 timeframe, we were at, $60 a ton, something like that. So it's been going up. We're hoping that we've hit the peak with, now that, oil prices are kind of coming down a little bit. There's less uncertainty. We're hoping, kind of, it's hard to know what's going to happen in the future with, that's a bigger worldwide almost issue sometimes, but we're hoping that some of those question marks and some of those material prices are going to come down for next year. Again, we're also hoping to hit this bidding better than we did, last year to kind of maybe take the edge off of some of those prices as well. But like you said, Mike, it is there is a lot of that inflation that we're battling with a lot of these projects. So your $1.3 million 2 to 5 years ago is if you think about 50% asphalt price hike in the last few years, you're more or less breaking even. Somewhere close to that comparatively. So.
And with that, so did you feel that with the 2 million, are you reaching for more project? Do you think we're gonna be able to? And again, I like the idea of bringing the two 50,000s together. Those types of tricks, we'll call it, to try to get ahead. Do you feel like is there more on these sheets with the 2 million than, let's say, 3 years ago with the 1.3? Distance, project-wise, more projects?
I'd say we're doing more in the street maintenance part
Okay.
than we have been for sure. We're hitting a lot of we've gotten through a lot of the bigger, busier streets with our street maintenance, chip sealing and whatnot. So we've gotten the Crestview Drive off the list. We've got the Cooley Road off the list. Hagan Street we've got off the list. So some of those are all checked off, which is great. Granby Drive's done. So some of those are off the list now, which is great. We've got a few more of the busier streets that we're looking to do this next year, like Hanley, in the part that was repaved a few years ago, making sure that that stays good. And Vine Street from First to Wisconsin that we reconstructed, 2016, 2019, making sure that that stays good. But a lot of the other streets you see on the sheet for 2023 are kind of some of the more residential streets. And so the ones that are still in good condition, we want to keep there. And that's kind of where we have made a few extra strides with this extra funding, I think, is being able to do some of those streets and keeping those in good condition.
Okay.
I don't know, Mike, you can
Yeah,
chime in if you.
I completely agree with what you're saying there, Dean.
Okay,
Thanks.
yeah.
I have a few questions. So on the first page, when you talk about the Safe Streets for All action plan, out of that, will one part of that be speed control measures that I know we've heard from residents, their concerns on that, and potentially taking a peek at that. So I guess that's my first question on that.
Yeah, so when we find out from the county if they're successful, then we'll have to talk with them about what we want to make sure we get out of this, to make sure that we are hitting, like you said, I think the community and the council members and whatever really want to see a lot of those like speed control measures and safety improvements, making sure we have that toolbox listed so that we can use this action plan for the future and being able to make decisions based off of stuff that's in there. So that's something that we'll have to make sure that we discuss with the county to make sure they're aware of what we want to be able to use this for in the future. Yep.
When is the county expecting to hear back?
I don't know.
We don't know yet.
What
We're
is
hoping
it?
early 23, like spring of 23.
Okay. What is our
If that
plan?
measure does fail, then we'll just bring that in-house and do a traffic calming policy in-house with current staff.
So our residents really are at a spot where they can't expect an update until spring on our speed issues?
I'd like to get clarification before the snow melts. But yeah, first step is, let's just see if the county gets it, right? Because then we can piggyback on their grant, and then that opens up other opportunities for the city moving forward for improvements, right? So that's one of the main reasons we're trying to get in with them. Like I said, if that doesn't work, then obviously that work will come in-house. Probably myself, along with our engineering tech, will put together a policy based on some others that have been approved here recently, and other communities that are surrounding us, bring that forward probably in like February or March for your eyes and, discussion, so on and so forth, and try to get something done before spring when we start kind of deploying our measures out again.
Right, and a lot of the speed control measures are things that we don't generally do in the winter anyway. So we do have a little bit of time to.
I just know how quickly that time goes.
It does, yes.
I know, I understand.
As long as winter seems to take, it does go quickly. in
Seems
some
forever.
ways. Yeah.
Well, to just draw that back, is something we've addressed as council, is that it's an issue that faces both Public Safety Committee and Public Works, is, those issues are brought forward about speeding and how can we control it, and know that, Dean, you have personally been a part of a number of traffic studies based, your skill and expertise, and working with the police chief to set up the systems for monitoring the speed, and we have various devices that we can use to monitor, but then what do we do with that? How do we help calm those neighborhoods, give people the sense that we're aware of the concern, and what are we asking the police department to do? What are we asking our public works, our design team? That'll help to have outside input. I think that will be good. Hopefully that will go forward, because it's definitely been a topic that's been on everybody's minds for some months now.
Do you think perhaps at the next Public Works meeting in January, this could be updated to us so we can know where it's at, so we can keep people informed as we continue to hear?
We'll make a note of that, yes.
Do you know what the time frame is for the awarding of?
No, I know the grant application was due in September. Generally, takes somewhere between 4 and 6 months for these grants to go through the whole process and get awarded, that kind of thing.
Is that a federal or a
That's
state?
a federal.
Okay.
Yep.
And as the fastest growing county in the state, or close, neck and neck maybe with Dane County, you would certainly hope that if St. Croix County is saying, hey, we need help with planning, that they would be
Yeah.
included in that grant
I'll also
money.
say that St. Croix County went in with Dunn County and Eau Claire County for this grant as well, so it's not
It's
just
3
St. Croix
counties.
County. It's a regional kind of thing that they've been trying to
Okay,
be
interesting.
successful with that, so.
My next question
Yeah.
is, while I understand what you were saying about length of roads, blocks, and blending it with the arterial roads, I think we've talked about how the bulk of the roads that are really the lower PACER ratings are in the District 5, this downtown zone. And I see a couple on here, so thank you. But some that are really bad, I don't see even in the next 5 years. So can you let me know what strategies we have in place to keep those safer for our residents? And while some that aren't even as busy have received, are getting done before other ones that are maybe busier, I would appreciate some insight on that recommendation.
Do you have any instance of a street that you're thinking of?
Yes, I have heard repeatedly on 9th Street, which I think many of us have,
Yep.
from a speed issue, and I know there's been some issues with even the delineated barriers, being able to even have roads safe enough to put them in. And Fillmore is the other one I hear about quite a bit as well.
Yep. You want me to take this one, Dean?
I'll let you start.
All right. So it kind of goes back to just the overall project cost of replacing and repairing 9th Street, right? So per our estimation, it's approximately a $3 million project. Well, we're only bonding for $2 million, so we're at a $1 million shortfall. So that in itself, we don't have enough money that we're borrowing to do the street.
I understand
Yeah.
that.
Okay. And so that's kind of the hard part as far as staff is putting together this program, because it is, not that $2 million is a small amount by any means, but it truly doesn't go very far, especially when you factor in just the street maintenance, portion of that plan, when you're spending $400,000 to $500,000 on street maintenance just to keep our good streets in good condition, which is what we want to do because that's the best bang for the buck as a city. It only leaves you about $1.5 million to go towards a street reconstruction project. Well, that gets you about 3 blocks. So that's the challenges that we face when, we were talking about this and putting this together, so.
What is our approach? Are we just going to keep,
So the thought is, once we're caught up on the street maintenance portion and we begin to see increases, in years 2028, 2029 to our street infrastructure maintenance program, our street infrastructure CIP, because some debt will be rolling off after that. The thought is to increase the street infrastructure portion to kind of stay at a level debt ratio, and then we're able to do larger projects like 9th Street. So in the time being, obviously, we're gonna just have to continue to get by until we have funds available, or the Public Works Committee and Common Council can just basically say, we wanna do 9th Street, we wanna do it in this year, and staff will have to make it happen. And we'll have to just either not do as many projects in the previous year and carry money forward to that year to do it. That's a possibility, but then you're, obviously taking projects off the list that have been identified. So, we're only giving our recommendations as far as the amount, we're trying to get as many roads done with the amount of money that we're given, right? And so those are the conversations that you'll have to have, that council will have to have when this is presented and we move forward with it.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say is, like, when we do receive the obvious grants for street reconstruction projects, so 3rd Street Hill, we got a grant for, 11th Street, we got a grant for. Obviously, those are priority projects, and we can't get rid of them, right? So we have to set aside and earmark money to make those projects come to fruition, just because we would be foolish not to use
Free money.
the grant money to do those projects, right? That's why those are so important. Anything above and beyond that is obviously a discussion point. So for instance, for 2024, we have the street maintenance program listed at, let's see, what's the- $362,000. I mean, you very well could say, we don't feel like that's necessary that year. We want to use that $362,000 to go towards reconstructing Fillmore Hill, that 2-block stretch of Fillmore Hill, for instance. That's up to you. We're here to follow through with what you and council wish to do.
Well, and I also say, there will have to be some discussions, 2020, usually our bonding is every other year, so our normal bonding is like right now for the next 2 years, but because there is that special bond next year for the Public Works facility building, if council wants to step up infrastructure funding, that might be an opportunity to do more bonding then. The next normal bonding cycle would be in 2020, it'll be 2 years from now, for 2025 and 2026, so if the council at that time feels that we're not doing enough, like that would be an opportunity. Obviously, you gotta weigh how much we can bond for various things and what that is on the average property owner and that kind of thing, The other thing I'll say too is that, say for the Hagen Street project, obviously a lot of people think that's very important. I won't disagree with that. But if the grants don't come through for that project and council decides we can't spend $8 million or whatever it is to do this project, that gets pushed off to a future year or something like that, that opens up, I think it was like $1.7 million that we would have spent on a matching portion that could be used for, say, the 9th Street project or put towards that or, something like that. So this is why this comes back every year, because those puzzle pieces change based on, the grants come through or they don't come through, or material prices change. Maybe it'll really come down, and so we're able to do a lot more than we are showing here, which would be a great problem to have.
Or another example is the commercial in Wisconsin Street project. If that project doesn't go through, we can use those monies that have been identified in this plan to go towards another street. And that's why, at this, let's just say a year from now, we're back at this table kind of reviewing our 2024 projects. If, like I said, if that doesn't come through, then we can obviously, put that money towards something else that's in need.
It's really challenging.
We're making a lot of assumptions with this plan based on projects and grant funding that may or may not be received.
Right. It's hard to count on any of that. And I have I consider you both subject matter experts on maintaining the streets, and it will be probably alarming, or there'll be questions raised, well, why are you working on that street again? That's a whole new neighborhood, and but the approach of we're gonna keep those streets from deteriorating, spend a little bit earlier and more often, is partly, I think we need to help Hudson residents understand why we're doing that. That's a pretty nice street, why is it getting work again? Well, all it's getting is seal coating this year, crack seal or seal. And, but yet that's going to, again, our professional advice is that's gonna keep it from deteriorating. So it does definitely feel like, oh, we're taking care of these and forestalling or putting off some of the bigger ones, or the significantly worse ones, but they are so much worse that they need, full depth reconstruction. It's just really pricey. So how to spend that money is tough. And I know I, for one, appreciated the budget that was put forward this year to really, try to have a minimum tax impact. And while we do have the ability to bond for significant funds to do big projects, the payments on those bonds have to fit in our monthly, our annual budget. And so we can only borrow so much realistically. So it's challenging, and I think, like you said, we'll have to adapt and look at each year and each situation closely. And it's good to look at it from different directions. I appreciate the input. Did you have
You
more?
guys
Go
do
ahead.
a great job. You do.
Thank you.
And Dean, we'll miss you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And Mike, we're glad you're here. And Deb, don't go anywhere.
Team, go team.
Yeah.
Okay, other questions or comments, or did something to fill in? How about you, Mike?
No, kind of echoing what you're saying, it's, to me, there's so many moving parts with so many different streets and, you talk about the Pacer rating, then you talk about what you actually see as you're walking down the street. And then you get phone calls, I'm sure, about my street needs more than all these. I think you could sit there for a year, every day, study this and say, oh, no, new priority today. Now we're gonna do this, then we're gonna do that. So again, like what Joy said, that you guys, you have so many more insights that we do, that there's a lot of trust with this. But we are trying to stretch that budget, try to do the right thing. Spend $1 today, so it's not $20 in 5 years, that type of thing. So, yeah, it's a tough job you guys have, so. But again, we've done well when something changes, and so we have a chunk of money. Now where do we put that? So although it feels like we're locking this down, in cement, no pun intended, but an engineering job.
That'll be asphalt, it's cheaper.
As things change, as developments get put off by a year, or a grant comes in or doesn't come in, you guys have also, on that side of it too, you've been very nimble to shift gears on the fly and put it to where we need it, so.
Appreciate that.
Joey, did you want me to talk about the engineering costs like we've talked about
Sure, if you
before?
wouldn't mind,
Okay.
I did bring that up to you in a phone call
Yeah, so
today.
just for the sake of more information for everybody, you'll see kind of the estimate of different costs for, the engineering side of things for these projects. So when you think of a project, you can't just think of the actual construction cost, but you also got to think about what it takes to design it and then what it takes to oversee the construction as well. And some of the projects you might think like, oh, that's a lot of money for what I think this project might entail, that kind of thing. So just keep in mind, when you think of design engineering, it's not just putting lines on sheets of paper. It's, all the planning, the public engagement, we have to do soil boring sometimes, hiring somebody to do that. It's, putting the plans together, it's doing the bidding, it's analyzing, did we get a good bid or not? And then if it didn't, then I have to do that all over again, that kind of thing. So
Topos.
it does add up to more than you would expect, but in a lot of these cases, there's certain projects I have listed on here that say, by consultants, and sometimes that's required, like for when we get a grant for various projects, WSDOT requires us to use consultants. So that's part of the reason why you see some of the projects as consultants. But some of the bigger ones, like Locust Street in 5 years from now, that's such a unique animal that having some consultant help to come in and kind of work with the complexities of a project like that, I think is helpful. So I want to make sure that consultants are also generally more expensive than doing it in-house, but when you're talking about things that city staff might not have the expertise to like fully take on, want to make sure that we've budgeted for that help to come in and help us do those projects. So that being said, this is all estimates as well. We try to be realistic yet be conservative, if that makes sense. So we want to make sure that we're not undershooting, these projects when if it says it's going to be $20,000 to design it. We don't want to be at, suddenly we're at $20,000 and we haven't even gotten the plans done yet. So that's going to cause a problem. I have to come back here and say, hey, I need $10,000 more. We need to move this around or whatever, and that just gets really messy. Hoping that, some of these projects we're able to do more efficiently than what's listed. And so, we're hoping that, say, at the end of 2023, we can be here in the same, seat talking about, we did these projects and, hey, we actually were able to do this project for a little less than we thought. So we say we have $30,000 that we have extra. that can go towards doing a study for an intersection, or that can go towards, putting more money towards like this traffic safety toolbox kind of thing, or, stuff like that. So I want to make sure that you're aware of the intention behind showing those engineering costs and making sure you understand where that all comes from. And then on the construction engineering side too, it's not just being out there while they're doing the construction, but you're also doing things like as-built drawings, making sure to document what's happened, putting together pay requests for the contractor, resolving conflicts, which happens more often than you'd hope. Closing projects out, making sure the punch lists get done, and dealing with residents that have something come up, that kind of thing. So there's a lot that goes into that as well. So all that time adds up in the form of costs for engineering. So I just want to make sure you guys are all kind of aware of the holistic scope of what these engineering costs entail. So.
Thank you, Dean, for that. And one thing I did want to point out and I appreciate you're looking at that 5-year vision, is that you built in some engineering costs, like let's say late fall, we might start engineering for next year's projects that we're projecting to do, and that work will get started. So we are ready to get bids and so on. So some of that you actually, I think maybe on that 11th Street, which we have a grant for, 11th Street from Cooley up to Wisconsin, that some of the engineering work will actually be done in 2023. And it's in the plan, budgeted here, but the work won't be done until the state gives us the go-ahead.
Yeah, and how my philosophy on this, and a lot of those bigger projects, it really helps to do the design work a year ahead, so that you have it done in time, so that you're hitting the good bidding period like we have right now. So like, say for instance, 3rd Street, we were expecting to do that project this year, but say we weren't, and we got all this design done now, now we're able to hit the bidding part of the season that's advantageous. So I just want to kind of take advantage of that timeline, making sure that we're doing as much work up front as we possibly can and getting that budgeted in. So you'll see, maybe we could do more construction in 23 theoretically with not having some of those design costs up front, but then you're kind of hamstringing yourself for a year or two in the future. So we want to make sure that things are as flexible as possible and able to take advantage of ideal timelines and whatnot as much as possible.
Okay. Thank you. Other comments or questions? Staff input, anyone? How would you like to proceed? We could make a motion to accept it, or do you want further discussion?
Go ahead, Mike.
I was waiting for further discussion from you.
Okay.
I have no more questions.
Oh,
I don't either. So I'll go ahead and move that we accept the 2023-2027 proposed infrastructure CIP.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we will adopt the infrastructure maintenance reconstruction plan that's been presented tonight, the capital improvement plan as outlined in these issue sheets. Any further discussion or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none opposition, that has passed, and we've accepted that infrastructure maintenance plan. Thank you for your work on it. Appreciate it,
Thank you for the
Dean.
great discussion.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Okay, let's move on to the second new business item, which is discussion and possible action to approve the 2023 Public Works Committee meeting schedule.
Yep, so included in your packet is just an outline of the 2023 meeting schedule. You'll note that there is a change in the meeting time from 5 to 5:30 to accommodate Sarah, right? Correct? Or
Yep, and I did learn that my work schedule in 2023, I will be working from home on Mondays, so I could stick at 5 o'clock. I just learned that this week, so
okay.
if people would rather do 5 o'clock, that's fine by me.
Sure. Well, I'm assuming. I'm assuming staff, like, I mean, your
Yeah.
workday is supposed to end at 4:30, so it's nice to have a meeting promptly.
Yep. That'd be fantastic. So yeah, it's typically,
That's fine by me, yeah.
okay.
Me too, I can make 5.
And then the schedule is our typical kind of second Monday of the month,
With some exceptions, right?
with some
For-
exceptions for
Holidays.
holidays and, yeah, council meetings.
Sure. And I like that as a group, we've made accommodations. If someone couldn't make it, it's nice for as many of us to attend as possible, since we're a small quorum and we do value everyone's input and discussion. And so we've all requested and we've had some flex in the meeting dates, which has worked out nicely. So,
I'll move to approve the 2023 schedule at 5 PM, right?
Yes.
5 PM start time, that would be the only change.
okay.
I will second that.
All right, we've got a motion and a second to adopt this meeting date schedule for the Public Works Committee for 2023. We will be starting at 5 PM for our meetings, and the dates are listed here. So any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
All right,
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is approved, so that's great. We've got our plan and a schedule for 2023. We'll hit the ground running. Any old business that anyone would like to bring forward? How about project updates?
Not a lot happening right now, so.
Well, I want to.
Well, we obviously have our 2 bids out.
Yes.
They are due late January.
January 31st.
January
yep.
31st, so that'll be coming forward in February. That's our street maintenance program and our Third Street Hill reconstruct. It's not a full reconstruct, but, so obviously those 2 items. As far as project updates, obviously, we had 1 round of snow here last week or the week before already. Time flies. Staff is preparing for an upcoming storm that we're supposed to be starting tomorrow. Salt shed is full, so we'll have a full staff availability to handle that. Obviously, the Christmas decorations downtown, we've been wrapping the poles. Staff has been doing some tree trimming and ash tree removals during this last week. And then our street patch truck has been out and about filling some problem areas that have been called in. So we're able to do that now in colder temperatures because of the unit that we purchased. So that's been a huge help as far as keeping our
Nice.
roads maintained during these cold winter months. So
I thought I spotted some loose trap rock around
Yes.
town.
Yep,
Some
that's where
patching,
it's coming from.
Laurel and.
yeah,
Wisconsin
we're you know, I directed our staff to not go hog wild. Just hit the really bad problem areas, like I said, areas that have been called in, because
Okay,
it doesn't have time to set. I don't want it to be plowed into people's yards and we get a phone call in the spring that we have all this trap rock. So he's just hitting the really, the worst of the worst right now, just so that we're not losing tires in the middle of winter.
okay.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for doing that. Thanks for the lights look really nice on Second Street. How you wrap those around the poles. That looks really great. And please thank your staff for, I'm sure it's going to be a lot of work. So
Yeah.
we're grateful for our safe roads. So
Yes.
thank them.
you.
Yes, absolutely.
does that truck have a season? Is there a low temperature you can run that? Did you have to stop running that at?
You know, there
Hot, right?
technically isn't, however, from what we've been told by the manufacturer that made the truck is, 20 degrees is kind of the limit.
Okay.
Obviously, if there's something really egregious, we could go out and hit it, but at that point in time, I would just
Okay.
probably use cold mix to get through the
Right.
winter months.
That's good to know
Yeah.
that we have that ability.
Yep, absolutely.
That is good. Great, thank you. And thank you for, I believe it was at your crew that striped the lot once that.
Yep.
So we have just the first lift
Correct.
on the lot here, so that'll have to be,
Yep. Yep.
it's still part, I mean, are we withholding some money on the payment until that's completed?
Yep, still
for
got
where
another
the
lift. Yep, absolutely. And just to
Fire hall
let,
was taken down, or the old fire hall.
and just to let you all know, Dean and I did have a meeting here earlier, or late last week, to kind of talk about his transition as he's leaving us here on the 22nd. And so we went through all of the grants that are out, all of the projects that have yet to be closed out, any future things that were on his desk, so I'm aware of what he's been working on, so that we can kind of well, not kind of, so that we can keep things moving forward, and keep, keep projects coming in and out the door. So I just want to let you know that that has been addressed.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and I know you're, got a pretty full schedule anyway, so thank you for taking on, I know you said, you could work on submitting grants and so on, so appreciate that extra effort, and good thing you've got Deb right next at your right hand. Keep things, who takes the phone calls for the potholes? Do you have a hotline for that?
Whichever number they call on.
Whoever picks up.
Check the website.
Whoever picks up. Well, anyway, I do want to thank, and I'm sure others also, but thank you, Dean, for serving the city. I really feel like you always, always put what you thought was best forward, and certainly above and beyond, as many of our city staff do, but appreciate it. It's been good to work with you. I've learned a lot from you in the short time period that I've been on the Common Council, and wish you all the best going forward.
Thank you. Thank you.
Definitely echo that. So both of you guys have been, all of you guys have been fantastic on onboarding all of us. So we're all grateful for that, and wish you the very best in your future. And it certainly is a loss to us, but we know we have other great folks that are stepping to the plate, and we'll be excited to hear how your future unfolds.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yep. I mean, what else can I say? Yeah. Yeah. No,
Ditto.
I appreciate all your work, Dean.
Yeah.
And yeah, when I was new guy, still new guy, but when I was really new guy, you really helped, me understand, what it takes when we have these meetings. You don't just show up and start talking. There's so much homework and things that we don't even consider. So you've always been very upfront about that. And yeah, and I think you've had Hudson's taxpayers in mind when you make your decisions or recommendations, and that only makes our job easy when we feel like we're all on the same team for that. So thank and good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wishing you the best, for sure. Stay in touch. Okay, if there's any other items, communication, something mentioned, we're going to talk about safe
Safety in
roads
the
and so
next
on
one,
going
just an
forward.
update.
Next month, other items coming forward. Very good. Then I would be ready to have an adjournment motion.
Adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded to adjourn our meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Thank you. We are adjourned, and thank you for all your time and energy tonight. Good night.